and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Sam. If you are not new, thank you so much for coming back. As always, I appreciate you more than words can say. Okay, so first things first, I feel like I need to address the fact that I am almost always wearing this sweatshirt when I record. It's my favorite sweatshirt, and if it's clean, I'm wearing it. I just needed to get that off my chest really quick. All right, we're getting right into it today. We are deep diving the Direct Selling Association. If you are a direct seller yourself, you cannot join this association. You have to be a business, a company with direct sellers within that company. I became familiar with the Direct Selling Association when I was in Scentsy because they are a member. So I've known for a while of the association. I just never took the time to actually look into it and see what it is. So I decided that I was going to do that, and I'm taking you along the ride with me. The first thing I want to talk about is who they actually say they are. According to DSA.org, which is their website, they say that Direct Selling Association, DSA, is the National Trade Association for companies that market products and services directly to consumers through an independent entrepreneurial sales force. DSA serves to promote, protect, and police the direct selling industry while helping direct selling companies and their independent sales force become more successful. We started in 1910 as the Agents Credit Association by a group of representatives in Binghamton, New York, hoping to resolve issues with agents unable to collect payments. From that, it sounds like they started as sort of support for collection agencies or the buffer to having to use collection agencies. So it says, today we provide members various services from educational materials, access to industry research, networking opportunities, professional development, and other support programs. We work with Congress, government agencies, consumer protection organizations, and others on behalf of our nearly 130 member companies. So that's what they call, obviously, any company that takes part in the association. One of the most pivotal roles we play is through our commitment to self-regulation and our code of ethics. And then their mission statement is to protect, serve, and promote the effectiveness of member companies and independent business people they represent, to ensure member companies' products and the direct selling opportunity is conducted with the highest level of business ethics. So on the Who We Are page of their website, it continues on to display like the different types of members or people under the umbrella of DSA. And so they have obviously the direct selling company members, and then they have pending applicants, and then they have suppliers. So they have a whole huge list of different suppliers that consists of like all different things that MLMs would need. What I thought was pretty interesting is that there are companies out there that specifically work with incentive trips. So like the incentive cruises or the incentive any trip. There's whole companies dedicated to doing that. There is this one company that I wanted to specifically highlight, and that is Buy the Sea. So it's spelled B-U-Y and then the C. This is all they do. So on their website, it says where incentive buyers buy cruises and all-inclusive resorts. So they have things like Royal Caribbean cruises, and then they have also like resort packages that you can get. I just found that like super interesting to see that there's a whole business that somebody made to just package up resort stays and cruise packages for MLM companies who have these trips for their incentives. It's so wild to me. But anyway, so they have the suppliers, and then they have supplier exhibitors. And so just like all of the MLMs out there, they have a yearly meeting that they put on, and those supplier exhibitors are the ones who pay for a booth at that yearly convention meeting. They also have something called the Affinity Partnership, but every link that I have clicked at the time of this recording was not working, so I don't know if that's like no longer a thing or what happened there. And then of course they have their global associates, who are the companies with international operations that do not plan to enter the US. And they also have subscribers. So subscribers are people looking to start a business or exploring the direct selling channel with the intent of of starting operations. DSA subscribers receive access to DSA digital resources, research, communications, and events. Whereas the direct selling company members, their benefits include research services. There's a service that they have where they do all of the industry statistics and things of that nature so that the company itself doesn't have to go out and do it. And then they also have professional development. So they have their meeting, they have online webinars and things like that. They have a governing committee and networking councils. They have advocacy and ethics. So they have different advocacy groups, and then they also have lawyers on staff that help with things when business might go awry. It says they get access to internal resources. It looks like that means more training, access to news and informational resources, Salesforce program. So that looks like they get Salesforce shipping discounts, credit union memberships, and insurance services. So these are all of the benefits of joining the DSA. Something else that's worth mentioning is that their entire board of directors is made up almost fully, with the exception of like lawyers and the president of the DSA itself. It's primarily made up of MLM presidents and CEOs, founders. And the reason I found that to be interesting is because they claim to work with direct selling agencies as a whole. Now, when I say direct selling, sometimes people automatically think of MLMs, but direct selling is like with anything. So I used to work in a doctor's office, and we would have like the pharmaceutical reps come in and talk about different medications, or when I was working in the surgeon's office, they'd come in and talk about different tools. They were trying to have the doctor prescribe more of this specific medication or purchase this specific tool to use for surgeries. That's also direct selling. With those direct selling opportunities, there is no recruiting aspect involved. With MLMs, there's direct selling, but most companies primarily depend on recruitment. So that's the difference between the two. Now, according to DSA, they say they work with a multitude of direct selling companies, and MLMs are just some of the companies they work with. So I went through their entire member list, which I will link below for you to check out as well if you are interested in looking at that. But almost the entire list, with the exception of maybe 3 or 4 companies, are all MLMs or have been MLMs in the past. So like Advocare. In my opinion, I believe it to be true that they specifically target MLMs and want to support that business model more so than the actual direct selling companies that do not have a recruitment aspect to them. But anyway, I just thought that was a little interesting. So moving on, let's talk about some of their FAQs. Of course, we have are all direct selling companies in the United States members of DSA? Their answer is, while our member companies maintain a base of independent salespeople that represents more than 80% of the direct selling industry in the United States, DSA does not represent every company. When a company commits to DSA membership, it commits to maintaining the highest ethical standards and consumer protections by adhering to the rigorous standards and policies set forth in our code of ethics. Not every direct selling company decides to make the commitment necessary to comply with the code. Their answer is obviously no. Now, in order to be a member of the DSA, from what I understand and from what I'm finding, you have to pay a fee and abide by their code of ethics. So their code of ethics very much mimics what the FTC says, so they just enforce it a little more in depth, and I kind of look at them as the buffer between the MLMs and the FTC. With that said, I think there is way more that needs to change. The primary thing that needs to change with MLMs in order to make them ethical at all is to completely get rid of the recruitment aspect of it and just have it be a direct selling company. One of their other questions is something that we kind of just went over. What is the difference between direct selling and multi-level marketing? Direct selling encompasses a variety of distribution methods. Multi-level marketing is one type of distribution and compensation method. Multi-level marketing is a type of direct selling recognized by the Federal Trade Commission and used by hundreds of companies, including some of the world's best-known consumer brands. It is not synonymous with pyramid schemes, illegal business operations, unless the multi-level marketing company compensates members of its sales force primarily for recruiting new participants instead of for selling products and services. Which is interesting because that is what most MLMs are getting away with right now. What benefits does DSA provide a direct seller of a member company? A direct seller with DSA member companies will receive the benefits of the company's pledge to abide by the DSA Code of Ethics. The direct seller is encouraged to share the affiliation of the DSA member company with all their customers, as DSA membership is a symbol of the highest possible business ethics. A direct seller can expect the company to provide legal and accurate information on the company's pay structure, products, and sales methods, refrain from any unlawful or unethical recruiting practice and exorbitant entrance or training fees, base all actual and potential sales and earnings claims on documented facts, abstain from encouraging the purchase of more inventory than can be sold in a reasonable amount of time, purchase 90% of marketable inventory and sales aids purchased within the past 12 months if the direct seller decides to leave the business, and explain the repurchase option in writing. Additionally, the individual may be eligible to participate in DSA's health and liability insurance plans for direct sellers of participating DSA member companies. That's kind of cool. And then on the flip side, what are the responsibilities of a DSA member company direct seller? A direct seller of a DSA member company is responsible for upholding the same high standards of business ethics the company has pledged to uphold, which are embodied in the DSA Code of Ethics. A direct seller must always tell potential customers who they are, why they are approaching them, and what products they are selling, explain how to return a product or cancel an order, respect the privacy of customers by calling at a time that is convenient, promptly end a demonstration or presentation at the request of the customer, provide accurate and truthful information regarding the price, quality, quantity, performance, and availability of the product or service. Offer a written receipt in language the customer can understand. Provide contact information as well as the contact information of the company represented. Offer complete description or of any warranty or guarantee. So what I find interesting is that this, as well as most terms of service and things that these representatives and consultants are signing, all say that they have to conspicuously say what company they're with, what they're selling, what their intentions are, and almost none of them actually do that. So why is nothing being done? That's not the purpose of this specific video. So let's continue. Like I said earlier in the video, their code of ethics pretty much mirrors what everything the FTC requires from MLMs with a little extra oomph, I guess you would say. There's a few things that I wanted to highlight and touch on, but I will make sure that everything is linked down in the description so that if you want to go and look deeper into the code of ethics or anything else that I discussed, you can go ahead and just click on the link. Under A1H, it says independent salespeople shall respect any lack of commercial experience of consumers. Independent salespeople shall not abuse the trust of individual consumers or exploit a consumer's age, illness, handicap, lack of understanding, or unfamiliarity with a language. So this was interesting because, like we've seen in so many network marketers' pitches, they do exploit different things. I can see how that would get reported and not have anything founded out of the investigation because it's kind of hard to prove that that is happening, but it is happening. So let's move on to A6, which is addressing pyramid schemes. For the purpose of this code, pyramid or endless chain schemes shall be considered actionable under this code. The DSA Code Administrator, appointed pursuant to Section C1, shall determine whether such pyramid or endless chain schemes constitute a violation of this code in accordance with applicable federal, state, and or law or regulation. Member companies shall remunerate independent salespeople on the basis of sales of products, including services purchased by any persons for actual use or consumption. Such remuneration may be based on the sales and personal consumption by the independent salespeople and their downlines. Independent salespeople shall not receive earnings for recruiting other participants into a sales system, except that companies may provide independent salespeople with minimal incentives in accordance with the law. It's another rule that they must abide by, but nobody has taken the proof that is out there as proof, and I'm not too sure why at this point. But most MLMs are working on a unbalanced pay method where to make any kind of sustainable income, you need to be recruiting. Otherwise, you are likely losing money, in my opinion. So they do touch on the buyback programs as well. So if you remember from the whole LuLaRoe catastrophe, they had a buyback program where they would buy back the inventory of the consultant. This is that type of program that they're addressing in this section. And this is under section A, number 7, and it's 7A. The purpose of the buyback is to eliminate the potential harm of inventory loading, i.e. the practice of loading up salespeople with inventory they are unable or unlikely to be able to sell or use within a reasonable time period. Inventory loading has historically been accomplished by giving sellers financial incentives for sales without regard to ultimate sales to or use by actual consumers. The repurchase provisions of the code are meant to deter inventory loading and to protect distributors from financial harm that may result from inventory loading. And then, of course, they go over what inventory is, and they continue on to say, changes in marketplace demand, product formulation, or labeling are not sufficient grounds for a claim by the company that a product is no longer marketable, nor does the ingestible nature of certain products limit the current marketability of those products. Government regulation that may arguably restrict or limit the ultimate resaleability of a product does not limit its current marketability for purposes of the code. State statutes mandate that certain buyback provisions required by law must be described in an independent salesperson's contract. While acknowledging that the contract is probably the most effective place for such information, the DSA code allows for placement of the provisions in either its recruiting literature, sales manual, or contract. Regardless, the disclosure must be in writing and be clearly stated. Wherever disclosed, the buyback requirement shall be construed as a contractual obligation of the company. They continue to say, a member company shall not place any unreasonable or procedural impediments in the way of salespeople seeking to sell back products to the member company. The buyback process should be as efficient as possible and designed to facilitate buyback of products. The buyback provisions apply to all terminating independent salespeople who otherwise qualify for such repurchase, including independent salespeople who are not new to a particular company or those who have left a company to sell for another company. The buyback policy should be published in multiple locations and formats and stated in a manner understood easily by a typical independent salesperson. It should be the goal of each member to ensure that the typical independent salesperson is aware of the company's buyback policy. Therefore, each member company should undertake its best efforts to ensure the effective communication of the policy. Whew, that's a mouthful, but it's good to know. First of all, they have to put on their website clearly that they are a member of the DSA. If they are a member of the DSA, they have to have a buyback program that makes it easy for independent salespeople to partake in that program. So when you think about like LuLaRoe, they did not make it easy. If they were a part of the DSA at that time that everything was going on, they would have been dropped from the DSA. So I can appreciate that this is something that they focus on, and they do seem to take things like this seriously. So there's a small, minute piece of comfort in knowing that. Like I said, I will go ahead and link all of the resources that I'm pulling from in my description below if you want to go and look at this code of ethics for yourself. I am not going to be reading through it all on this video because I'm pretty sure you would click out. It's nothing unheard of that we haven't heard of before from the FTC or from other MLM contracts or things like that. So luckily, the code of ethics has a little footnote section. So let's go over that. Our code of ethics protects consumers and independent salespeople with standards that ensure member companies are held accountable when it comes to claims about earnings, products, and other important areas. Our member companies must provide their independent salespeople with accurate information about products and services, sales and marketing methods, and compensation plans. Our member companies and members of their independent sales forces must provide documentation for claims and representations when marketing products, services, and the opportunity to become a direct seller. Our members must honor the repurchase policy, requiring the company to purchase any unused inventory from independent salespeople within 12 months at 90% or more of the original cost. Our member companies must provide adequate training to their independent salespeople on ethics, marketing practices, and field interaction. Our members must offer reasonable entry fees and costs and encourage salespeople to purchase reasonable levels of inventory. Our code of ethics requires independent salespeople affiliated with DSA member companies to adhere to the code's guidelines and ensure a high level of professionalism, customer service, and business ethics when interacting with consumers. Independent salespeople must respect a consumer's wishes to discontinue a product demonstration or sales interaction. Independent salespeople must market income representation and product descriptions consistent with company directives and ethics training. Independent salespeople must provide a receipt from the member company that permits the consumer to withdraw from a purchase order within a minimum of 3 days from the date of the purchase transaction and receive a full refund of the purchase price. So those are some things that you can keep an eye out for when you see a distributor, salesperson, representative, whatever you want to call it. Whenever you see a network marketer marketing their business or trying to recruit people, you can keep these things in mind. And if they break any of these rules, not only can you report them to the FTC, but you can also report them to the DSA if they are a member company, which I will link that list down below. And that will just give another step of making sure that something is done about it, hopefully, eventually. Every year, the DSA puts out a Code of Ethics compliance report. Now, the 2022 report is not out yet, so I couldn't get my hands on that, but I do have the 2021 report, and I wanted to look at any dings that may have come up over that time period. And again, I will link this in the description. So on this areas of code enforcement, they have different sections of the Code of Ethics, and for each one, they have how many allegations or reports they have gotten under that specific umbrella, if you will. The first one is deceptive or unlawful consumer or recruiting practices. They had 86 cases in 2021, compromising 89% of overall reports. So 89% of the reports they've gotten are for this, and I am not at all surprised. And then they had 4 cases of product, services, and promotional materials that included product claims. So for example, when Monat is claiming that their product makes your hair grow, that is a product claim. So in my opinion, there should be more cases of both of these things. And I think that I don't know about everybody else, but I personally was not aware that this was somewhere that we can also report things like this happening. Of course, it does have to be a company that is a member, but Monat is a member of the DSA. So just keep that in mind when you are scrolling the socials next time. So I definitely think that there needs to be more reports made to them because from what I understand, they do work closely with the FTC. The big changes need to come directly from the FTC, but I think this would be a good stepping stone. Now, there were no claims for terms of sale, no claims for warranties and guarantees. 5 cases, which took up 5% of the total for 2021 of identification and privacy. So that's like the representatives that were not clearly and conspicuously letting people know what companies they were with, what product they sold, their intention with the communication. So that's what that one is. there were 0 cases of pyramid schemes. How? Just how? Inventory purchases and repurchases, there was 1 case. There was 1 case of earning representations, which again, it just blows my mind that there's not more cases of that happening. 0 cases of inventory loading, 0 cases of payment of fees, and 0 cases of training and materials. I do believe that there should be more cases under most of these umbrellas. Now, obviously, it is different. So some of these things only apply to the member companies, but like the things like the deceptive or unlawful consumer or recruiting practices, that applies to the DSA member companies and the salespeople. So if you ever see anything like that, add this to your list to report it if it's not already on your list. And again, that link to report is below in the description of this video. In 2019, the DSA initiated a direct selling self-regulatory council. So let's talk a little bit about this council. The Direct Selling Self-Regulatory Council was launched in 2019 as a third-party independent self-regulatory program administered by the nonprofit organization BBB National Program. Direct Selling Self-Regulatory Council is funded by the Direct Selling Association, the DSA. Why is this council here? Direct selling, when done correctly, can benefit sales force members and consumers. However, the dissemination of unsupported product claims and the over-embellishment of the amount of money that can be earned through a direct selling opportunity is an ongoing concern in the industry. DSSRC is a proactive effort to identify and eliminate product and earning claims that are eroding the reputation of the direct selling industry. Be successful, effective self-regulation requires ongoing commitment and participation from companies and sales force members from across the industry. DSSRC monitors the entire U.S. direct selling industry and embodies the following principles: clear industry standards on issues such as product and earning representations, relevant best practices from other self-regulatory models, a process that both monitors and enforces strict business principles, and guidance to raise the bar of excellence for DSA members and the entire direct selling channel. So from 2019 to 2022, the results look like this. There have been 15 cases referred to the FTC for non-response, non-compliance with inquiries. There have been 59 public case decisions. There have been approximately 900,000 unique URLs reviewed for potential infractions, 342 COVID-tagged posts, 227 administratively closed cases. So seeing these stats, it's good to know that they're actually doing something, but I don't know if the discrepancy is either they're not getting the reports of things happening or they're just not enforcing the rules. The numbers don't add up, in my opinion. With all of the resources that they have for the direct selling company members, you would think they have something for the independent direct sellers themselves. So they had a link for resources for people who are part of this company. So I clicked on it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I wonder if they talk about like taxes and things like that. So I went to the page and it gave stats of direct selling and FAQs. And the FAQs are the same as the other FAQs. So I don't know what they offer the direct sellers. I don't know why this option is even here. It's not super helpful for direct sellers themselves. There's nothing here that really tells you anything aside from what direct selling association member companies should be doing. Other than that, there's really not a whole lot here, but this chart. So let's look at this chart. Direct selling in the United States 2020 industry overview. Direct selling in the United States achieved record highs in 2020. Gee, I wonder why. For retail sales, sellers, and customers. By dividing the $40.1 billion in sales by the 7.7 million direct sellers averaged 5,208 in retail sales in 2020. Let's just highlight the fact that $5,208 is an annual average number. So those network marketers, MLMers that are out there saying that you can quit your job, if you can live off of $5,208 in 1 year, I would like to know how. There were a total of 7.7 million direct sellers in 2020, which was a 13.2% increase over 2019. This direct retail sales chart shows that there was 13.9% growth in 2020. Again, a lot of that had to do with the pandemic and the targeting that happened. So I think those numbers are skewed. I would be curious to see what their next report shows in comparison to this one. Sales by product category. And of course, the number one product is wellness. Wellness MLMs shouldn't be a thing. That should just be illegal overall because it's so wrong on all the levels. The second highest was services. Third was home and family care. Fourth was personal care. Fifth was clothing and accessories. And then last was leisure and educational. 41.6 million preferred customers and discount buyers. So those are like your auto ship customers. Demographic breakdown of both direct sellers and the discount buyers. 75% of them are women and 25% are men in 2020. And the majority age range is 35 to 44. As far as ethnicity, 22% of the direct sellers were Hispanic and 8% were Black or African American. They have this little map down here that's kind of interesting to look at too. Is the sales by state. So the two highest states are Texas and California, which it goes by price. So it doesn't surprise me too much because those are pretty populated states. Anyway, I don't think that the DSA is all bad. I think that having the DSA in place is beneficial. I wish that there was more that they were doing to combat the things that are happening in network marketing. And again, I think the number one thing that needs to happen is the recruitment aspect of MLMs needs to go away. Of course, they wouldn't be called MLMs at that point, which is fine by me. If it was just purely direct selling and you were just selling a product and not banking on recruiting people into a community, then I would agree with the business model overall. But in the meantime, I think this is a good thing to have in place for now. I am going to make sure that I link the FTC and the DSA links for reporting any wrongdoings or things outside of the code of ethics so that you have that for next time if you should need to report anything. And on that note, I have another video to go record. So if you're not subscribed, subscribing is free and it's the best way to support me and my channel. So I would appreciate it. And after you did that, make sure you go and watch this video and I will see you over there.